Man, who you can actually see a full silhouette of, as to where everyone else is just an arm sticking out of a jail cell. But yeah, it's pretty obviously a metaphor for how royally screwed over the creators at companies like Marvel and DC get when it comes to having ownership over their own characters. Morbius in Blade. So the first Blade movie from 1998 originally had a different ending than the one we got. In the released theatrical version, the film ends with Blade not accepting the cure to his vampirism while he's talking to a now human character, thanks to the cure, Karen, about how he still needs his powers to keep taking care of business. Then the film ends on a scene with Blade hunting a vampire down in Moscow. But in the altered, deleted scene, we see that as this conversation about the cure is wrapping up, a shadowy figure is watching from a nearby rooftop. That shadowy figure was indeed Morbius. You can't really see his face at all, and I don't think there's a high-res version anywhere online at the time of this video's upload. But yeah, this was meant to set up a Blade sequel in which Morbius would have been the main antagonist. But I guess everything happens for a reason, right? Venom kills Sandman. So in 2000, there was a 2-issue story that took place in both Amazing Spider-Man and Peter Parker's Spider-Man number 12, in which the Sandman reunites all of the old Sinister Six members to hunt down and assassinate U.S. Senator Stewart Ward and Dr. Octopus for their unnamed boss. Spider-Man is nearby, as he's trying to stop Arthur Stacy from also assassinating the Senator whenever Sandman and Sinister, well, 5, show up to try and complete their assignment. In the middle of all this, Venom just kind of appears and tries to kill Spider-Man. A nearby bomb goes off, which was set by a terrorist stalker of MJ's. Yeah, there was a lot going on. And the ensuing flames cause Venom to freak out, seeing as how fire is one of the symbiote's only weaknesses. Sandman takes notice of how much fire fucks with Venom and bullies him a little, and the two get into a brief spat until Electro breaks it up. Mysterio asks Venom to join them in completing their assassination, and Venom accepts under one condition. He gets to be the one that kills Spider-Man. So when the new Sinister Six finds Spidey, Ward, and Ock, Sandman offers Spider-Man a chance to flee the scene before they carry out with the assassinations. This pisses Venom off, and Sandman bitch slaps him aside when Venom challenges him for going against their deal. Eventually, Seward Ward emits like an energy explosion until Electro stops him, and Venom escapes before he could get harmed. But a few issues later, in Peter Parker's Spider-Man number 16, we see that Venom has decided to hunt down the Sinister Six for both embarrassing him about his weakness to fire and for beating him on his guarantee that he gets to kill Spider-Man. His first target is Sandman, and when he finally tracks Sandman down, he ends up eating a nice chunk of Sandman's body, which causes Sandman to basically fall apart and die, which we see happen a few issues later in Peter Parker's Spider-Man, issue number 22. Sandman says that if he loses any of his sandmass, he can't survive, so that's why he died. Obviously, this wasn't permanent. Mickey Mouse Spider-Man. In Walt Disney's Comics and Stories, issue 635 from 2003, there's a short story in which Mickey Mouse gets bitten by a spider and becomes Spider-Mickey. The story actually happened before Disney bought out Marvel, so that makes this even that much weirder. He even ends up mutating into a giant mouse-spider hybrid by the end of the story, before he's cured of his spiderness and returns to normal. Tier 3. Tony the Tiger versus Electro. So I'll keep this brief because I already covered this in my weirdest Spider-Man crossover comics video, but I wanted to mention this for any potential new viewers who weren't aware. There was indeed an official Spider-Man and Tony the Tiger crossover in 1990, in which they have an extremely brief encounter with Electro. Yeah, really weird stuff.
Cookie Run Tower of Adventures is officially available on both mobile and PC with Google Play Games. Experience more ways to play and sync your in-game progress through your PC and mobile devices. Immerse yourself in a 3D cookie action adventure on a larger PC screen with a mouse and keyboard or a controller. Team up with friends in multiplayer mode and explore the Pancake Tower together. Get started by downloading Google Play Games today.
Kim! Erase gun!
Hold them to their grave!
Let's make them regret ever stepping foot onto our Earth. Let's go!
Aunt May and Uncle Ben predate Amazing Fantasy 15. In Strange Tales, issue 97, published before Amazing Fantasy 15 in 1962, we see a story about a young woman in a wheelchair called Goodbye to Linda Brown. In the story, she's being taken care of by her guardians, her aunt and uncle, until she decides that she needs to return home again. In the sea. Yeah, she was a mermaid. And her guardians were named Aunt May and Uncle Ben. If you added a few pounds to Ben and shaved his mustache off and aged Aunt May up a little bit, I could see these characters being the same. As it stands, I don't think there's ever been an official connection to the two. Aunt May looks pretty similar to how she's typically depicted, so I don't know. I think it's fun to canonize Aunt May and Uncle Ben taking care of a mermaid before they brought Peter in. Also, this story was written by Stan Lee and drawn by Steve Ditko. Deadpool kills Aunt May and Uncle Ben. In Deadpool issue 0 from 1997, Arnim Zola has created clones of long-dead Marvel characters that Deadpool is going around and defeating. While in the Clone Hub, he stumbles upon a bed with two bodies underneath the covers, which he removes and finds naked clones of Aunt May and Uncle Ben. Deadpool is horrified at this ghastly sight and murders them both. The issue also ends with Deadpool bringing home 4 clones of Gwen Stacy that are all dressed up like pinup girls. This actually kind of relates to an entry further down this iceberg. Josh Keaton 2002. So Josh Keaton is a lot of people's favorite voice actor for Spider-Man. He's probably most well known for the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon, but he's voiced Spider-Man plenty of times outside of that, especially in video games from the early 2010s. But before any of that, he was actually set to voice Peter Parker in the video game based on the 2002 Sam Raimi film. This was before Tobey Maguire came on board to do it himself, so obviously Keaton's lines weren't used for the game. Well, sort of. See, in the game, you could actually unlock the ability to play the game as Harry Osborn's Green Goblin, fully equipped with a goblin glider and everything. Some of the voice lines he says throughout the game, specifically those he spouts while fighting enemies, are the same ones Peter says in the normal game.
Out of my way! Back off, ugly! I'm gonna take you down!
Out of my way! Back off, ugly! I'm gonna take you down.
There's also a video on YouTube in which you can hear Josh Keaton reciting unused lines that were clearly recorded for the role of Peter before Tobey came aboard.
Uncle Ben. Nothing could ever fill the hole left when he died. Those wounds never really heal.
Uncle Ben. Nothing could ever fill the hole left when he died. Those wounds never really heal.
Outside of the snippet in that YouTube upload and the dialogue used for fighting enemies in Goblin mode, his performance as Peter is currently publicly unavailable. Tier 4, Venom's creation. So a lot of you have probably heard that the original idea for the Venom symbiote, known as the black costume at first, was an idea that a fan, Randy Schueller, submitted to Marvel in 1982, which resulted in Jim Shooter paying him $220 and keeping the idea for later usage in the Secret Wars event. Images of this original fan idea have been plastered all across the internet by now. It's the classic black suit, but instead of the spider and web shooters being white, they're red. This art was from Rick Leonardi, original Spider-Man 2099 artist. It was published in its colored form in Marvel Age number 12 via fan submission by Brandon DeSantis. This is the image that everyone associates with the original fan-submitted black suit idea. After all, it is a black and red costume, and that was the original idea from Randy Schueller, right? This proto-black suit design has gone on to have a bit of a niche fan base in a way. It's been officially depicted in Sensational Spider-Man Self-Improvement number 1, and Insomniac even included this original fan variant color scheme in Spider-Man 2. Fast forward from 1982 to 1988, and Todd McFarlane is now the main artist on Amazing Spider-Man. The common narrative surrounding Todd's arrival is that he really wanted to get Spidey out of the cloth black suit so he could draw him in his iconic red and blue threads. So the legend goes that he basically pitched the idea of Venom to writer David Michelinie as a way to get Peter back into his classic costume, but still have the possibility to use the black suit in future stories. So, all of this is what's pretty commonly accepted as Venom's creative origins. However, it's kind of not. Well, it can at least be argued that there are a lot of misconceptions surrounding these notions of Venom's creation. This has been publicly debated amongst creators such as David Michelinie, Erik Larsen, and Ron Frenz as far back as 1993. In 2021, legendary Marvel artist Ron Frenz made an in-depth Facebook post explaining the history of Venom and essentially debunking a lot of the accepted narrative around Venom's creation. It's going to be more beneficial to read this post directly and the articles attached to it than it would be to try and paraphrase here, so buckle up for this. This post is from October 9th, 2021. There seems to be a new wave of conversations going on around social media about creators, co-creators, and creations lately, specifically surrounding Venom, twisted foe of the Amazing Spider-Man, lethal protector of the innocent, and Flashpoint for uninformed opinions. Let me help if I can. Keeping in mind at all times, I have no dog in this fight. Horrible phrase, by the way. Let's start with the popular impressions, one at a time. 1. Venom was created by a fan and stolen by Marvel for the measly sum of $200. Total BS. Randy Schueller submitted a plot idea wherein Spider-Man gets a new black costume, the description of which from the Gentleman's Very plot is attached to this essay. The story itself was unfortunately never hammered into shape for publication, so ultimately Mr. Schueller was paid $200-some for the idea Spider-Man gets a new black suit, which editor-in-chief Jim Shooter was fine with, as he filed the idea away for his Secret Wars project, wherein several characters were earmarked for visible changes before returning to Earth from the conflict. When the time came to design Spidey's new look, artist Mike Zeck never heard the name Randy Schueller or knew of any prior conversations before creating the look of the black costume. Mr. Rick Leonardi soon suggested a second joint in the leg of the graphic spider, which went from red to white at the 11th hour for purely practical printing reasons. Attached is my visual interpretation, we call them drawings, of what is described in Mr. Schueller's plot. The Randy Schueller plot that Ron Frenz used for reference to draw this original black suit states the following. The costume is the same basic style as his old one, but the new suit is entirely jet black. His underarm webbing now extends almost the full length of his body, from the end of his gloves to the top of his boots. It appears as if Spidey is framed in a giant web when his arms are spread. The costume's mask has the same two-way mirror eye slits as his old costume, and the spider emblem is printed on his chest in blood red. Let's discuss the next impression without worrying about sourcing to avoid serious aspersions of any kind. 2. Todd McFarlane created Venom to get Pete out of the black suit and into his preferred classic red and blue suit, and writer David Michelinie is a poopy head for saying otherwise. I'm embarrassed to say, I ascribed to this thinking for years because of the simple fact that if I were assigned the job of turning Spidey's black suit, now a living symbiotic creature thanks to the twisted mind of writer Tom DeFalco, into his newest nemesis, I would not have gone big and muscular and might never had thought to add the mouth, which originally didn't include the tongue, later added by illustrator Erik Larsen. Except that those elements were right there in Mr. Michelinie's original plot for Venom's first appearance, also attached, which was conceived, typed, and editorially approved before Mr. McFarlane was ever hired to illustrate the adventures of Spider-Man. Did Mr. McFarlane's subsequent popularity and dynamic approach contribute to Venom's immediate breakout status? Mr. Michelinie has never stated otherwise. The visual description Michelinie had for Venom that Frenz based this sketch on states the following. But as she enters the apartment and turns on the lamp next to the sofa, she looks over to a still shadowy corner where she sees the white spider and eye shapes from Spidey's costume. Thinking that Peter is home, she starts to scold him gently, but stops, surprised, as she sees a white smile from beneath the eye shapes. Not a pretty smile, a scary smile, like that of a predator, sure of a quick kill. The form then steps from the shadows